Hello, and you are listening to EcoJustice Radio. We present environmental and climate stories from a social justice frame featuring voices not necessarily heard on mainstream media. Welcome, I am Jack Eit. On today's show, The Māori Way of Water, host Carrie Kim will be interviewing Henny Unwin, Kairana Ho, or research scientist with the Cawthron Institute. Henny Unwin is a marine scientist in Te Kowi-Io, or Māori research team. Her main role is to interweave science and Mataranga Māori, the Māori worldview, into research projects. She's passionate about caring for the talau, the environment that cares for her.
Aloha, this is Carrie Kim. Listeners, today we have the privilege of speaking about our relationship to water, the ocean, and Māori culture with marine scientist Henny Unwin of Te Kowi-Io, the Māori research team in Aotearoa, also known as New Zealand. Our show originates from the ancestral homelands of the Tongva and all of their relatives. We thank the Tongva ancestors for their continuing presence, legacy, and stewardship of this region since time immemorial. And we invite listeners to align with and act on behalf of the many nations, Indigenous nations of Turtle Island and the world. Ours is a time to go beyond land acknowledgements to action. Humanity has a primordial connection to water. For Indigenous peoples, such as the Māori, water is an ancestor, a living entity to be communed with, revered, and treated with sacred reciprocity. We owe our lives to the oceans, rivers, lakes, and streams of the world. And although marine ecosystems has often been viewed and studied through the abstract lens of economics or science, today traditional Indigenous knowledge and cultural relationships with marine life and water in all its forms are at the forefront of a new weaving that blends the ancestral past with the present. There is a growing wish to restore traditional concepts of marine and aquatic cultivation and care to address climate change, microplastics, health of marine life, contaminants, and aquaculture. If water is an ancestor, what is our obligation to it? How do we restore a harmonious relationship to water? What should stewardship of marine ecosystems look like? What might we learn from the Māori, expert navigators of the waters who have long held that their relationship to the land and waters is sacred? For them, nature is everything. Henny Unwin joins us to ponder these questions from her diverse perspectives as a Māori descendant and marine scientist. Welcome, Henny. We are thrilled and honored to have you on the show today.
Well, tēnā koe, tēnā koutou, I te tuatahi, tuia tarangi e tui honei, bind together the sky above us. Tuia te papa e takoto nei, bind together the land below us. Tuia te moana I wanganui e tātou, bind together the oceans between us. Tuia te here tangata, bind together the people. Ka rongo te pō, the celestial bodies, the night is listening. Ka rongo te ao, the world and all that's held within it is listening. Ti hei mauri ora, alas, we have the breath of life. So, tēnei te mihi nui kia koutou I tēnei wā. E te kano kōrero me mihi ki nā tangata whenua o tau wāhi. E tū nei, e tū kaha nei, e tū mana nei raro I o koutou Te akitanga I o koutou wenua. So I acknowledge the people of your land and the place that they are in and the strength that they bring to stand on their lands over there. So who am I? Ko Ruapehu te maunga. So Ruapehu is my mountain. Ko te awa tupua te awa. The awa tupua is my river. Ko nā te tūwhare tō te ata aunea paparangi nai tūhoi nā te kahununu rawa so ko rongo mai wahine oku iwi. I belong to 5 tribes in the North Island of New Zealand. And ko Hieni tōku ingoa. My name is Hieni. So kia ora tātou. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Wow, we could just listen to you all day long just speaking in Māori, because encoded in that language is such a deep appreciation and respect for life itself. I mean, you can hear that. And we need to hear more of Indigenous languages. And I'm thankful that there is such a huge revival happening for Indigenous lifeways around the world. It's what our time heralds, we know. You shared a story of being fascinated with the ocean from a very young age, from a trip you took to Rorotonga. And what are some of the ways you are encouraging people to care for the ocean in your current profession?
Well, I suppose it extends back to my culture because, as you say, like within our language, that's where, you know, we have such a connection and such a bond with everything we do, because as Indigenous peoples, our language are born of the land and the oceans and the rivers that they come from. So that's where all of our strength comes from. Mm-hmm. And within our language as well, like even within the small sort of whakapapa, the genealogical link that I had, tell you about like where I'm connected to my mountains and to my rivers. If you look at our words for all of these, that's how you create the strong bond. And this is what I'm trying to do, to connect other people with their own areas and their own understandings and their own sort of hearts into spaces. So if we look at the word iwi or ko iwi, which is, iwi is known as tribe in New Zealand, but it's also the bones of our body. Hapu is our sub-tribe, so that like the collection of tribes that make up the bigger tribe. Hapu is also pregnant, and whenua is a big one for us. So whenua is the land that we come from, but it also means placenta, because it is the thing that feeds us as a child, as the thing that feeds us as an adult. So we have those strong relations with that. And within, when we introduce ourselves, we say the mountain that we connect to, because it is the whakaruriho, the shelter that calls our iwi home. We say our awa that we connect to, our river, because it is the life form that has given us life from past, present, and it will be our future. And we are nothing without these things. And so within my role and within my work, the way that I contribute to, I suppose, my Māori side and my science side, even though it's not separate in my mind,
Right. Yes.
it's, you have to sort of talk about it in these ways, is to ask people about their connections and their why behind why they're doing things. And one of the reasons why I got into this space, even before I went to Rarotonga, was I was born at my home in Christchurch, not at the hospital. And my home was right next to the river that was against a wetland listening to the ocean. So I feel like I've always been a water baby and always been immersed in water. And then I suppose my curiosity came, and my science side sort of came when I went to Rarotonga, because I went there, went snorkeling and was like, what the hell is this? Why is it this in New Zealand? Where is all of these? Like, what? How is this here? What are you? And so
Magical.
that sort of, it was completely different to, you know, everything that I've seen, everything that I grew up in, everything that I had known. So that's sort of where the curiosity began and the journey sort of began. So how you try and create those connections, but also like figuring out your why is very good place to begin.
What is your why?
My why is all of these spaces that I've talked about and these spaces that I've grown up in, they have been my sanctuary. So whenever I've been feeling sad or angry or, you know, a bit lost, I would go and return back to my rivers, to my oceans, to my lands, to my people. And that's where it would fill my cup and fill my wairua, my spirits. And then in those spaces, I'm just wanting to give back to those things that give so much to me. So this is the best pathway that I thought that I could feed back to those things that feed me.
And increase Yeah, the connection between other people who are maybe disconnected from those places and energies.
Yeah, exactly. Or just even as a reminder to them that, it's a living being. It is all living beings, regardless of what you're working on within your research. You must remember that it is a life form that you're living with. It is a life form that you are either harming or trying to figure out or, trying to better. So it's something that you can sort of easily forget sometimes when I suppose it's not playing God, but, playing with systems and playing with the natural order of things.
Right.
As you go through your research, because you're trying to determine, is it the wrong thing or is it the right thing for the future of things? And I feel like that sometimes can get lost and sometimes can, just really lead down a pathway where you forget what you're actually doing. And so it's always about that reconnecting and resetting and remembering where you come from, which I suppose comes quite naturally to Indigenous people.
Right. Connection to go back to as a source.
Yes, because I feel like in all of our languages and all of our talks, it's about grounding ourselves and reminding ourselves that we are part of something much bigger.
Right. Yeah. That's the humility piece, and the interconnection, the interdependence is huge, especially in Anthropocene era, I wondered if you could speak more about Mataranga Māori and science, and if you could explain what Mataranga Māori is.
Yep.
I mean,
it's a very hot topic. So Mātauranga Māori is actually quite a recent development. Like Mātauranga is just our simple word for knowledge. But Mātauranga Māori has been sort of brought in after colonization to really sort of, I think, express a deep need to say that our knowledge system's actually worth understanding and knowing, and a way to, I suppose, connect to it as well for non-Māori people. So, otherwise it's literally just knowledge. But in Te Ao Māori, our spiritual, our science, our everything that we do is not just sort of separate into different boxes, and they're not just sort of like split apart. So like you just do your prayer thing now and then you switch to this thing now and then to this thing now. It's all encompassed into one thing, and it's all present at one time. So our sciences in Te Ao Māori, spiritual as well as scientific. So an example of that would be if we look at another whakapapa line of how stars are born, and from those stars, how we get to our Earth right now. So we have this story that's actually science, but it's just an effective communicator of science. So we have ko Ranginui e tui hone, so Ranginui the Sky Father, ko Papatūānuku e Tākotone, the Earth Mother lies beneath us. So in the beginning, they were locked in a tight embrace. And they had many, many children that were all trapped inside this tight embrace. And some of the children were quite happy, some of the children weren't. And so they had this sort of fight between them to separate their parents. And the first person to try, the first god to try was Tūmātauenga was Tangaroa, who's the god of the sea. And he couldn't separate them. Then it was Tūmātauenga, the god of humanity, and he gives us our best qualities like anger and jealousy. He couldn't split them apart, and there was many others that tried, and then it wasn't until Tāne Mahuta, the god of the forest, he got onto the back and onto his shoulders and put his feet against his father and pushed them apart. And then all of the atua went to the world of light. So kaputa ki te whai au ki te ao marama. So they, came into this world of light, and that's how our Earth was born. Now, if we look at scientists' description of how the Earth was born, so we come from a exploding star that came back together. So there was a much bigger star or a sun beforehand, and then it had come back together. And as it comes back together, all the elements sort of line themselves up and form the different planets that we do have from a gravitational pull. And so that's how we ended up with all of our elements within the Earth itself. In those first sort of years that the planet was forming, it was completely dark and chaotic, right? So essentially, the Earth and the sky were separated because there was no light that was penetrating in. Yeah.
It's amazing to hear you tell it from the story of, the cosmological story, and then
and then the first autotrophs and the first organisms developed in sea first, but there wasn't enough oxygen to spread apart the skies. And it wasn't until trees grew against gravity that the skies cleared and it came into the world of light. So these, and we have a spiritual connection to these atua, and we descend from them. And the same sort of science thing, they've just taken that sort of spirituality out and then, stripped it back to a different language, to be honest. It's just a different language that has come through.
But it's also kind of a divorce. Like when I said abstract, there's a detached, like this is over here, the stars are over here, the elements are over here, and I'm here, separate. That is a huge, we know, a huge issue. Most of our problems arise from that separation, but given that
the supposed separation.
Supposed separation. Given that your mother is a Pākehā or a European descendant and your father is Māori, do you sometimes or somehow feel an even greater responsibility to restore health to the ocean? Were you steeped in Māori customs as a child as well?
Yeah, so this is a big sort of question as well. So having a Pākehā mother who was so wonderful to us because she was the one who made us proud to be Māori. So in that sort of sense, my childhood growing up, she was the one who ensured our proudness within ourselves to be Māori. And we got to stop for a second.
So we'll hold that thought right now. And we'll come back to you explaining about your descendants, your mother and your father.
Hey listeners, quick break here. We hope that you're enjoying EcoJustice Radio. Stay connected by subscribing to EcoJustice Radio on all major podcast apps, and visit our website, ecojusticeradio.org, to check out previous shows and guests and get connected with us on social media. For an extended version of this interview, as well as other benefits, we encourage you to become a member of our Patreon. Today we are listening to The Maori Way of Water with host Carrie Kim and guest Henny Unwin, Kairana Ho, or a research scientist with the Cawthron Institute.
So we're back with Henny Unwin, a marine scientist from Aotearoa. And if you could again continue or start from the beginning again about your mother and your mother and your father being descendants of European ancestry and Maori ancestry.
Yeah, so my father is Māori and my mother is Pākehā, and she was the one who instilled in us a great prideness. Is that a word? But we'll go with it. Prideness to be Māori. And so when she had us, she actually learnt Te Reo Māori for us. So she was the one who pushed us to learn Te Reo Māori. So we were put in Kohanga Reo, which is our preschool or kindergarten. And then we went into Kurarua Reo, so we went into bilingual units. And so we were instilled with this very strong, voice to say that, you should be so proud of yourself in this space. And this was during a time when it wasn't proud, you weren't proud to be Māori, or you were told you shouldn't be proud to be Māori. And it was after quite a long period of time of, you know, a loss of our culture and a loss of our language. And my father does know Te Reo Māori, but he really did grow up with it getting beaten out of him. And, you know, it's in sort of those things where many other traumas unfold and come out. And so in a way, he was kind of hurt by the Māori world because, I mean, he's brown skin. I know it's not reflected in my lovely skin right now, but yeah. Yes. So it is very, very for him to connect sometimes because
heartbreak there.
There's so much heartbreak there. Yeah. So having that strength from my mother's side, who is Pākehā, who, you know, could have completely gone the other way and just said, oh, you shouldn't really care about that whakapapa, which has happened for a lot of people, but she really went the opposite and went full 100 into this Māori space and has made us so sort of like proud to be Māori, which is such a beautiful thing. And it's grown up in that sort of turmoil and that sort of very difficult time of the resurgence and renaissance of getting our language back, but also, you know, the sense of pride that we should feel to be Māori. A lot of different thoughts and ideas came forward from a lot of different people, especially about my own heritage, because I do have white skin, but I do have also Māori features. So, and
like that, isn't it, to have that mixed heritage?
Yeah. So it's definitely shown that I have mixed heritage. And so, and a lot of the times I was too white to be brown and too brown to be white because I mix within these worlds. And to be honest, I'm actually still figuring out who I am in those spaces, because you sort of get told that you're either too Māori in a space or too Pākehā in a space, and then you kind of just follow what other people want and what other people need instead of just being your true self. Mm-hmm. And then you put scientist in the mix, which is quite a scary word to some people who just don't know what to do with it. It becomes a very sort of confusing position. And so I'm still very much on this whole discovery of like, how can I just be my authentic self without
trying to be the other?
Yeah. And actually who I am in that space, because I do have both those dual bloodlines and I do have that dual heritage. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I do Pākehā things sometimes and I do Māori things sometimes. Yeah. And so it is, how to be me in those spaces it's a very interesting journey.
Sometimes maybe it makes you more accessible to both sides, but I get that you can be too brown to be white and too white to be brown, etc. at the same time.
Yeah. So you somewhat are a bridge, but also a
target at the same time, maybe.
like a lonely bridge.
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes people don't want to cross it, and you're just like, that's fine. And then you just got to let them be where they are. So so I do feel sort of like this great passion and this great need instilled from my mother and instilled from my father as well, from the hurt that he experienced, to ensure that I suppose people can be who they are in whatever space that they need to be. And it's not asking them to be more Māori or asking them to be more Pākehā. It's asking them to just be respectful on both sides, because that's all it is at the end of the day. It's just a mutual respect of these beautiful spaces. Although, some things I can disagree with on both sides, and that's completely fine too. It is just, I think at the end of the day, literally a respect and a trust to know that we can work things out and we can find the right way. So we have this word in Māori called tikanga, which is protocols. But tikanga literally means the right way of doing things. So tika is right, and ngā added onto it is just like the rightness. Yeah, but it's literally the right way of doing things based on who you are and based on where you come from, because you are a product of your environment. And that could be a social environment, but you also must remember that you're a product of the environment, as in all of the food has come from the environment, all of the waters, all of your connections have come from the land that you live on, from the oceans that you swim, from the rivers that you drink from. And so that really builds within you and ensures that you are healthy and thriving. And that also comes from that social connection as well. So it is reminding yourself constantly, constant reminder that you are a product of this world and you're connected to that world and a part of that world.
Exactly. So, you are that world. Could you elaborate a little more on the Māori saying, I am the river and the river is me?
Yeah, absolutely. So that comes from the Wanganui River. So one of my tribes, Te Atiaunua Paparangi, are the tribes that are associated to the river as well. There's Ngāti Rangi and Ngāti Uanuku. So that extends from, that actually is a very recent saying that has come out. So around 30-ish years ago, so just about as old as I am, there was a fight for our river, the Wanganui River. And it was such a sort of like just natural emotion and natural connection that came out saying that, well, I'm fighting for this because I am the river is me. We need to fix this because that is who I am. Right. And it just literally was born from that. And so when Wanganui or Te Awa Tupua became a personhood,
yes,
after a very, very long fight, and thank you to my tūwhana for that, and to the people that are still alive. They came up with this, well, they didn't come up, but it just, again, natural sort of words came through of a thing called Tupu Takawa, which is our natural law system of the river. And the first one of that is Ko te awa te mātāpuna o te ora. The river is the spiritual and healthy, I'm getting there. It's hard to like say it in English, I swear to God.
Yes, I'm sure.
Ko te awa te mātāpuna o te ora. So the river is the spiritual connection to our well-being. So mātāpuna being the spring and the source point of everything. So the source point of the water. So that's where our entire well-being comes from. So that's the first kawa, the first law. The second one is mai te kāwi maunga ki Tangaroa. So from the mountains to the sea, the river should be continuously flowing. And that is sort of a way to say that, that's our responsibility to ensure that that's always happening. And then the third law is ko te awa ko au, I am the river is me. And that is about talking that this is everything that we are. And we should be a part of it as much as it is a part of us. And our responsibility to the river. It's a responsibility to ourselves. Yeah.
That was such a significant event in the world to have that be established, even though, I've said before on the show that it's a sad state of affairs to realize that we have to create a legal personhood or respect it as a living entity because we don't. So it just kind of shows that loss in connection because, Indigenous peoples would not have to do that. That understanding is already there. It's part of who you are, as you say.
Yeah. It's kind of like the only way we could do it within our governmental and judicial system, because we have one treaty here, Te Tiriti o Waitangi, which is such a powerful treaty that was disrespected for such a long period of time. And because of that treaty and because of what is said in that treaty, the government has sort of washed its hands of owning water, yet they can still charge for it. But if they start going down this pathway of they own the water, that means we can actually put a claim through and say, well, you can't because you said this was ours in the beginning. And so it is, a very sort of difficult system to navigate. And I think that's what has led to creating this personhood, because it was the only way we could fight.
Go around that treaty, the other treaty.
Not go around the treaty, but go around the government and their just hands-off approach to owning water so that they can't pay all these Māori back for stealing it.
Right. Well, could you explain a little bit more for listeners who don't understand the Treaty of Wairangi and, kind of the deception of that treaty, I guess?
Yeah, so the Treaty of Waitangi was signed back in 1840. And, okay, so there's 3 versions of it. There is the English version, the Māori version, and then the translated Māori version. And the English and the Māori, the English and the Māori version are a bit different, because within the English version, they can put these words of ownership and a sovereign, which is not really language that we use in Te Ao Māori, because we do not own anything. We are a part of it and we do have claim to it, but it's a really hard thing. It's just we don't own it. So in the first article, it talks about sovereignty and about who is going to be our leader. But in the Māori article, it is about the people who are not from New Zealand will have their sovereign and come under their umbrella so that they can create a government there. And I could be completely wrong about this, so Tiriti people can totally they can take that over, yeah. And in the second article, which is the most important article, is saying that all tribes and hapu, or the sub-tribes, their chiefs will have the sovereign over their people, of their lands, of their rivers, and all of the taonga, the treasures that they hold dear. So we had still remained and retained all of our whenua and our lands and our everything that we, owned. And then there's a third article about, I think, selling to only the crown or something like that. Very poor explanation. Don't come at me, Māori people. So it is really the second article that we fight for, because it stated that these are our treasures, that we have claim to them, and through the formation of governments, they took it away with the signing of a pen. And so our original fights, were with people, and then it became with words, and we had to fight in their arenas and their styles. And we just had to keep developing those different types of strategies and different types of ways of fighting for ours, for our people, for our lands, to ensure that they're, surviving and will survive for our future generations. So from that treaty, subsequently, everything was wrongfully taken. It started with, land, it started with language, with the way that we do things, our cultural practices, everything. Oh, my uncle's just come home from church, so sorry if you're hearing that. Hey, taiho, kati. But so in those different processes, everything has sort of been signed away and taken away from us, and it's different things that we've had to do to fight to get those back.
Different ways, like with the river.
It's
legal entity or
legal
personhood.
For the personhood, but to us, it's always been our ancestors. So another saying that comes from us is koe e kōrero motoawa, kōrero ki te awa. So don't speak about your river, talk to your river, because it is our ancestor. That's my ancestor. So I would go down to the river and be like, hey, Awa, what's up? And, I'd go for a dive and just cleanse through that. And maunga, called Mātua Te Mana, we call him koro. So he's our grandfather, because we descend from him. So these are the different types of languages that you use with your own areas and our own spaces, because that's what they are. They are your ancestor. We would be nothing without them. We wouldn't be here without them. And so, that's where it's really in the language that you use, I think, that really determines how much you can, your relationship and your connection, because you're literally stating, this is my grandfather. Please respect it.
Mhm. What's changed? I mean, things have happened. We know that there's been a certain kind of reparations. There have been formal apologies from the Queen. There's been all these things, but we know in the grand scheme of everything, it's a pittance. It doesn't compensate for everything that's happened as far as loss of life, loss of language, culture, loss of lands. If you look and you see that, there's 70% of Aotearoa is now European descendants over a very, very small percentage of Māori relative to that. So what do you have to say about sovereignty at this point in time? Have things actually changed as like a surface level, or do you actually see that there is a deepening change that is respecting Māori lifeways and actively trying to restore them?
Well, absolutely, I see a change. And it mostly comes off the back of people see a change in their own environments and they're like, why is it all happening? I mean,
The destruction.
the destruction. So, we keep getting these talks of climate change is happening, and then we actually see it, like when Cyclone Gabrielle came through and completely decimated the East Coast, or, the fact that we had more storms coming, or the fact that we have no snow. They can see it actively happening. They know it's happening. I don't think those people know how to change it or stop it or recognize that they were part of the issue. We're all a part of the issue. But I think what is really exciting is the rangatahi that are coming up, the young people that are coming through, because they are such the transformation of change. And my mum, she is a high school teacher, and she loved it because, like, high school students, as annoying as they can be, they legitimately can transform all social constructs. Like, you've seen it with their climate change movement, their call for justice for the environment. You've actually seen it through their call for social justice for our takatapui, our LGBTQ community, and coming up with the right language for them to respect them. And it has come such a transition because, they develop their own languages that change and transform even our commercial pathways for the future. I think it was Nike who hired, is it Kevin Kaepernick or something? The guy who put his
football player, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He put a knee down for it, and they lost money for the older generations, but the younger generations came through. They were just like, nah, this is awesome. Because they knew that that's where this was going. It wasn't just, for the people who are about to leave. It is for the future generations, and it's the future generations that we should be thinking about and putting our best foot forward for. And so I think that's where the change has come the most, is the social conscious and the information available to these young ones, so incredible. And they have really taken that on board, and it's just going to get better because they know already.
Mm-hmm. It's momentum, and they know what they're going to inherit as well. So that's why they're so insistent. But Henny, we're going to take another break right here, and we'll come back talking more about you being a Māori marine scientist in this Anthropocene era.
Hey listeners, quick break here. We hope that you're enjoying EcoJustice Radio. Stay connected by subscribing to EcoJustice Radio on all major podcast apps, and visit our website, ecojusticeradio.org, to check out previous shows and guests and get connected with us on social media. For an extended version of this interview, as well as other benefits, we encourage you to become a member of our Patreon. Today we are listening to The Maori Way of Water with host Carrie Kim and guest Henny Unwin, Kairana Ho, or a research scientist with the Cawthron Institute.
So Henny, as a Māori marine scientist, we are in this Anthropocene era. I'm wondering what sort of research projects you're engaged with now. Is there anything that you would like to share that you are excited about and see great promise in?
Well, so I have, what have I done for the last couple of years? So during COVID, I think it was, I asked my work if it was all right if I could do my master's And they agreed. And so that's where I started my master's journey, and I finished and handed in this year in Feb. And then immediately after that, as in like legitimately the next day, I had moved to a place called Hamilton in New Zealand, and I started my real journey. So my language journey. So they have a full immersion course at Waikato University called Te Tohu Paetahi. So shout out to them because I absolutely love them. And I spent the year reclaiming my language.
Wow. That's
so
that was a full immersion, like you say. So no English is spoken at all, or?
I mean, it was in the beginning, but by the end of it, all of our classes, all of our grammar was taught in Te Reo Māori, and we were only speaking Te Reo Māori. And so it was just this really beautiful journey that I've just been on of, I suppose, wanting to increase my sort of science capacity so I could better serve my community. But also then it just came to the forefront. It was like, well, I've just given so much to science right now. What am I doing for my Te Ao Māori side? And so I went straight in, and I was just like, nah, taking the year off, guys. So I still sort of worked, but like I was just straight into this beautiful journey. Yeah.
How did you change in that journey? You know, because obviously that is such a radical thing to have a year to reclaim.
Yeah. Oh man, it was hard because you do go through this whole learning experience, and through learning this whole healing experience, and going through healing, you really have to deal with anger and sadness, and the anger that you have that this language was taken away from you, the sadness that you feel because you didn't have it. Well, I sort of did have it from the beginning, but then it got lost to me.
And you have to work so hard, like doubly hard to reclaim it, right?
And you have to work very doubly hard to reclaim it, and very doubly hard to just retain it as well, because it can just go like that because you're not surrounded by it all the time, and you're not. And so you have to find those spaces that really you can really support yourself in those ones. And reinforce the language and continuously. But as we were saying in class, this is just the beginning. But I mean, there was just so many beautiful things that I learned along the journey about, like, and it was a really sort of like finding out who I was as well. And we sort of got posed this question, Iaha te utu o te reo Māori, mo koe ki te ako i te reo Māori. What is the price to learning te reo Māori? Because in te ao Māori, there's this thing called utu, which is kind of like, some people call it revenge, but it's also the reciprocity of all the price of things. And originally, the reason we lost our language, a lot of people say, is because, the Pākehā world was there, but it was actually a really different reason. So there was the legislation that came through the Native Schools Act, as well as the Native Schools Act, which was to get Māori into schools so that they could indoctrinate them.
Like boarding schools.
Boarding schools, yeah. And they weren't allowed to speak their language there. And it is actually like written in records that they said this is the way to get rid of Māori, is to destroy from their language. So whenever they spoke Māori, they literally got it beaten out of them. And so it wasn't that, they didn't want to speak or anything like that, but the price of what was happening was all of the parents and all of the elders were seeing their children get beat up, and they couldn't deal with that. And so the price so that their children wouldn't get beat up was the loss of language.
They would tell them not to speak it so they wouldn't get beaten up.
Yes. And that was the price that they paid. And that's, so when you go through this journey of being like, oh, what's the price for you to learn Te Reo Māori? You could say it's the $8,000 that you spend that year. It could be the year that you take out to learn and reclaim your language. Or you could go deeper and be like, it could be all of the people that had died and fought for our language. Or it could be the children who had it beaten out of them. You are doing it for them. So there's,
and so you can be a speaker to teach others, right? As well.
Yeah. And you go into just such this sort of deep emotion of reclaiming it, but also fighting, because you have to fight for it every single day, and it's never a fight that's going to stop. So yeah, and there was so much that I learnt, not only the language this year, but sort of like, you know, a lot more about who I am and where I am in this space. And so where I actually live is, well, where I used to live, where my work was in Nelson, which is in the top of the South Island of New Zealand. And after going through this journey, I decided, I'm actually in my papakanga, so my homestead now. I moved back to where my whakapapa is, where my genealogy is, and moved back home to where my whānau home is, my Māori whānau is, which is the first time that I've actually lived in a place where I have Māori heritage too.
Right.
So
that's a huge move.
It's a huge move, yes. I now currently live in a town, I think that's less than 1,000 people. I think. I haven't counted. I probably could, though. And, you know, it's in the middle of nowhere. We're surrounded by farmland because it is one of those, not reclaimed places, but it's called a place called Ratana Pā, which is part of the faith of Ratana. And it is just up the road from Wanganui where my river is. But yeah, and then down the road, yeah, I have sort of genealogical whakapapa to these areas around me. So yeah,
but this is your deep immersion. I mean, this is roots. I was wondering if you could share if the Māori have any specific prophecies about our times and what is happening.
I don't know about any recent prophecies. Yeah, we have they're called matakite, which is eyes that like look forward. They're our prophecy speakers, but also our speakers to our people who have passed away and our spiritual connectors. But again, through colonization, they've sort of been lost or pushed to the side and sort of transformed the way that they really can foresee.
Because you have that lost generation too, right? There's
and we have that lost generation, and then there was also the tohu, and then the Tohunga Suppression Act as well, which was so all of our expert knowledge holders weren't allowed to practice from the law that came through. So there's still a lot out there, and there's still a lot of knowledge holders out there. It's a rebuild space at the moment. So I'm pretty sure there's a lot of prophecies around. I just actually haven't heard them for the times that we have heard them. So yeah, I think, a lot of the prophecies have already come true in a lot of cases. So
what do you feel that the Māoris are here to teach the world?
That is a really, really big question. I don't know if it's necessarily that's our goal. So I think our like main sort of goal in life is to, you know, ensure that our whenua, our hours, our places are there for our future generations. And so we have tupuna whakaaro, but more kupuna decisions, so ancestral wisdom, but we make mokopuna being grandchildren decisions, or those future descendants decisions. So it is something where we will always be thinking of how do we ensure that our future generations are taken well care for. But in those, I think, ways of how we do things, and there's always learnings and always ways that we can, I suppose, show the world how they could really see it in their own space. And it's not to take what we have and then take it over there. It is to, I suppose, get ideas from who we are as people and what we have done and use them over there. Because, I mean, it's the same in sort of every facet, right? Like it's like I was saying before, you're a product of your environment. So there's only certain things that happen in your environment that can actually work.
Right.
It's the same within sciences. You try something out and then you try to repeat it, but because it might be in a different environment, it might not work the same, or you might not have done exactly the same thing. And so or it might not work in the exact same way. So you got to figure out what works for your environment. So I think what we have to teach the world and what we have for the world is a way to do things and a way to try things, but it might not work where you're from, and that's completely okay. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means it's not for your space and what you're trying to do over there. And
context, right? Everything is, like you said, it's connected to who you are.
Yeah.
And that's, could you speak a little more on this issue of autonomy and ownership of water and Aotearoa? I mean, globally, we know that water is the quote unquote oil of our era, that many are trying to privatize, sell, own, commodify. And, one Maori elder shared that we own the water from our own perspective or concept of ownership, which is, of course, not a Western kind of concept or capitalistic concept of ownership. Could you elaborate on what would be, how would you describe that? Because you don't have that in the language, right? Ownership, but at the same time, there is some form of understanding that, just like it was me.
Yeah. So I think I suppose it's just because we descend from the rivers and descend from the oceans around us that we have this, it's called a tuakana taina relationship. So in all of our genealogical histories, we can connect ourselves to every animal and to every sort of living thing that is around us, and unliving thing, or what scientists deem as unliving, like rocks or whatever.
That's really funny when you.
But they're living.
Right.
I mean, they transform, right?
Everything, right? Yes.
Yeah. Just takes a very long time. And so, because we can connect with them, they are literally like our elder brothers and sisters, and we are their younger siblings. And in Te Ao Māori, we have this tuakana taina relationship where it's like the elder siblings teach the younger siblings what they should be doing, how they should be doing it. But there's also where the younger siblings can teach the elder siblings the same thing. And so it's just this sort of brotherly, sisterly ownership of just like, you're mine, but I'm going to annoy you. Or, but like, you're sick, so I'm going to take care of you. Or, it's one of those sort of relationships. So it's an ownership of love. And it's
reciprocity. Would that be the same thing?
Yeah. So at the moment, our tuakana, all of our elder siblings are really, really sick. And so it's up to us younger ones, which usually are the nanakias, the troublemakers, to really, start being annoying, to fight and make sure that those older ones are better. And it's being annoying to those ones who might not know that they're being a sickness or causing sickness. So that's, I suppose, all of our roles as eco-justice warriors, to be annoying, to fight, to be responsible and fight for our elder siblings who are really sick at the moment.
We have an obligation there. We talked a bit about how science and spirituality for Maori it's integrated. It's not separate. Things are not in silos. But you're in the field of marine science, and how do you reconcile that as a person with Indigenous roots, to work in that space of trying to help people understand, that science and spirituality, how do you merge those two? And is it possible?
It's possible in a space. You actually have to create the space for that to be possible. So what I did within my own research was I had to create the space, but also fight for the space so that they could be interconnected. So like within, for example, my master's research was looking at the effects of microplastic fibers and natural fibers on mussels, the mussels in the oceans. We call them kutai, which means the pinching of the tide. And my first initial thought was, how do I ensure that my muscles are healthy and thriving before I even introduce anything to them? And so the way I set up my design and the way I set up everything that I did was to ensure that the muscle was at the first thought of my mind. And in this way, I was trying to sort of spiritually connect to the muscle and making sure that that was okay first. And when you sort of do that, everything else sort of falls into place in terms of like how everything flows, because you're literally trying to take care of something because it is your elder sibling and that very spiritual connection that you have with it. And all of these, I suppose, unspiritual and not spiritual spaces keep trying to impact that very sacred space. Mm-hmm. And so you work through it, mm-hmm. and you have to work through it.
It's ironic, isn't that part of like science? You're supposed to be sort of separate from your subject, the thing that you're studying. You can't be related to it. This is ironic, but at the other end, it's so different because you're meant to be entirely inextricably connected to.
Yeah. And the way that, science has evolved currently is to get rid of all of the connections to see that one connection. And in my mind, that's such a ridiculous thing to do. I know it's really hard to do it the other way, but at the same time,
right, it's been done for thousands and thousands of years.
It's done for thousands and thousands of years. Yeah. And like, it's one of those things where it's just like you can't even create one connection. Yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous.
You work harder to do that, right?
You work so hard to create this one connection that you cannot do. So may as well use all of the connections and try and make it as as connected as possible, but knowing what those connections are in the best form. So it was, you really have to fight for a space and your own space to really create that sense of connection and spirituality that you can bring into it. So there was
all of that.
And so there was, what I did to even more spiritually connect is I ensured I knew what the whakapapa link was to muscles and what was required, because if you look at the whakapapa links, the genealogical links, you can know immediately what the muscle needs. So it's like just a very simple sort of explanation. There's Rangi and Papa, Sky Father, Earth Mother, obviously needed. Then they had Tani Mahuta, the god of the forest, who married the maiden of hills, mountain and ranges. They produced the originator of water. Water had a relationship with the ocean. They produced Hine Moana, the maiden of oceans. And she had seaweed and mussels. And mussels live with their uncle, Koroka Kore, which is the reefs. And so through all of these connections, you can determine, for the muscle to be healthy, all of these connections need to be in place. And they all need to be safe. And they all need to know what's happening so that that can live and survive and thrive.
Henny, thank you so much for your commitment to reclaiming all of your language and to also bringing back that integration of science and spirituality in the ways that you can. And upholding the Māori ways of being in the world and acting in the world. Could you share how listeners can stay in contact with you and your work, and how should they find you?
Yeah. Speaking of connection, I don't know if I'm really that well connected. You can at the moment, yeah. I mean, you can look me up on LinkedIn. I think I sent you guys my email as well. It's henny.unwin. Do I do my work email or my personal? No, my work email at corthron.org.nz. And it's, I suppose, that's the way that you can connect to me at this current moment, because I don't really have sort of any other channels.
Like I said, you come out of this kind of incubation period. So
it's kind of like I've gone bush and there was no reception, and then I've come back and I'm like, oh my gosh,
here I am. Rest of the world.
Hello, how are we doing?
Hey, thank you so much, and thank you for all of the language that you imparted, because it's very important for us to hear kind of these I call them ancient ways, but they're just our original ways of being connected in this world. And that's how our love for this world would change the world. So thank you so much.
Well, nei rā te mihi ki a koutou katoa I tēnei wā, tēnei te mihi aroha, tēnei te mihi miharo mō koutou me o koutou mahi. So thank you all so much for the work that you do and for having me on the show today. It's been beautiful.
Thank you to our guest, Henny Unwin. And thank you to our listeners for joining us. This has been the Maori Way of Water. For an extended version of this interview, become a member of our Patreon or visit our website at ecojusticeradio.org. Please connect with us on social media at EcoJustice Radio, SoCal350, and Adventures in Waste. If you like what you heard today and you want others to be informed, subscribe, share the episodes, and help us continue our efforts by joining our Patreon or making a tax-deductible donation to the show. Project of SoCal 350, the show can be found on KPFK, KPFT, all major podcast apps, and at ecojusticeradio.org. Executive producer, myself, Jack Eit, producer and co-host Jessica Aldridge, co-host Carrie Kim, and engineer and original music by Blake Quake Beats. And until next time, remember, the power is yours.